Video live, YouTube up and recording. Over to you, Chair.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Economic Development Committee meeting for Tuesday, July 23rd, 2024 at 6 p.m. Ms. Lebeck, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Preston,
Here.
Councilmember Mabry,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell. Here. Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Here.
I can't.
I heard her say here.
Councilmember Hopper,
Yeah, I saw her say here.
Here.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Here.
Councilmember Galani.
So, Ms. Lebeck, do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
We do. Great. Thank you very much.
Chair Ottenberg.
Yes,
Could we
sir.
run an audio? Could Mr. Hopper try to run audio? I heard Mr. Jaxie come through the speaker. I just want to make sure we're getting
I
audio.
thought I heard Councilmember Hopper as well.
yeah.
Okay, we did. Okay,
Ms. McCutcheon, we
Okay.
didn't hear.
okay. Sounds good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
We can hear you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, first order of business is approval of the minutes for the May 20th and June 17th Economic Development Committee meetings. First of all, are there any questions on the minutes from either of those meetings? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from those two meetings. Make the motion. Councilmember Preston makes the motion. Do I have a second? Can anybody second that motion?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you. So we have a second. So any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Abstained.
All right, so Councilmember McCutcheon and Councilmember Mabry abstain. Very good. Oh, so minutes are approved. Next, we move along to public comment. Is there anyone on for public comment?
Mr. Chair, there is no one on Zoom for public.
There is no one here in the audience as well for public comment, so great. So we will move along to discussion.
Pardon me, Chair.
Yes, sir.
We did the meeting minutes, May 20th. Are the meeting minutes June 17th in order?
They were approved together.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah.
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 I cannot abstain from the one I did not attend and then approve the one I did attend.
Okay, so shall we go back and do them separately then?
In that case, I would recommend going back, motion, we would need a motion to.
I'll make the motion to
What would be your? recommendation? Motion to reconsider.
redo.
Motion to
separately.
reconsider separately.
Okay, so a motion made to reconsider separately. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
All right, so we have a second.
And excuse me,
Sorry,
Chair.
who seconded that?
Councilmember
Mabry. Are we sure that Councilperson Hutchins understands that there is?
Yeah, so what we're going to do is, since Councilmember Mabry voted to approve minutes from both May 20th and June 17th, he pointed out that he was not here for one of the meetings. So we could not approve both sets of minutes simultaneously. So we are going to go back now and approve each set of minutes separately. Okay, so very good. So moving to the May 20th meeting, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the May 20th meeting made by Councilmember Dodwell, second by Councilmember Preston? Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes from the May 20th Economic Development Committee meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Abstained.
Abstain.
Okay, so abstention from Councilmember Mabry and Councilmember McCutcheon. Did somebody else abstain?
Jaxi.
Councilmember also abstained. Very good, thank you. Moving on to the minutes from the June 17th Economic Development Committee meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes? Made by Councilmember Mabry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Preston seconds. All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes from the June 17th Economic Development Committee meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, so abstentions from Councilmember Dodwell. It sounded like Councilmember McCutcheon
And Jackson.
and Jackson. Is that correct?
And Hopper.
Yes,
In that case, we do.
Yes.
It's not passed.
Doesn't pass.
Okay, so in that case, it is not passed, which means then it goes to the next meeting.
Two options for this, Mr. Chair. In this case, we could have either it go on to the next meeting, it'll be on the next agenda, or someone could theoretically do an administrative approval where it would be more so just to push it through, but in this case, either could work.
So, I'll do-
Scott, this is Rob. I'd be willing to change my vote since there wasn't a quorum. I can vote administratively, yes.
Okay, all right.
So in that case, a motion to approve, but with that context on the record now that Mr. Jaxi is administratively approving them.
Okay, so do we need a new motion?
New motion.
All right, so a new motion to approve to do an administrative approval of the.
Oh, no, it's a real approval, but now we have on the record from Mr. Jaxi that this is done administratively. I know that sounds confusing, but
Okay.
that's why we're videotaping.
All right, so give me some direction.
Okay, so in this case, Chair, sorry for the
No, that's all right.
confusion here. We will be approving, the motion would be something along the lines of the committee looks to approve the June 2024 meeting minutes. And then we would all vote, but it has now been recorded that Mr. Jaxi was not here, but he would be approving administratively to get these minutes through.
So do we make a motion to that effect?
Yes.
Then I would entertain a motion to do as City Administrator Lee just suggested.
I'll make that motion.
I'll help you write that one.
Second. Councilmember Mabry, all right. All those well, first of all, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions?
abstain.
Okay, minutes approved. Thank you. Now we can move on to discussion items. The first item is committee introductions. We have several new members of this committee as a result of the recent city council elections. And I thought it might be worthwhile just to go around and give some personal introductions, maybe in say 90 seconds or less regarding, background, maybe family and what you do for work, your professional career, that sort of thing. And this would include our new business development manager as well, Gina, who we will get to meet here in a few minutes. So with that being the case, Councilmember Mabry, would you like to begin?
Well, thank you. Sure. 38-year resident of Wildwood, participant chair with St. Louis County's Wild Horse Valley Community Area Study, which generally proposed development criteria and vision for, call it the northern third of the city of Wildwood, which had been incorporated several years after that St. Louis County initiative. And since then, I've had the opportunity to, before then, had the opportunity to serve as St. Louis County Planning Zoning Commissioner, where I had the privilege to be the participant in some very important developments and zoning practices that grew the city that I got to be proud to watch grow. Built my family.
Very good, thank you.
All right, so I've been a resident of Wildwood for, I guess, maybe going on about 6 years, but I've been in Chesterfield for about 30, or in the area for about 30. I have a young family, a wife, Jessica, and 2 young children, 9 or soon to be 9 and 7, boy and a girl. And for work, I own and run a engineering manufacturing company of industrial process equipment, skids and automation. And we operate all over the Midwest, and it's really kind of, you know, mostly maintenance reliability driven. So a lot of things that we deal with in a given day are all reverse engineering equipment and making custom parts with CNC machines and all sorts of just, you know, we kind of have a plethora of things that we utilize, but I've been doing that for about 20 years now, and I'm 41, so basically most of my life, and love the area, so trying to make this place a better place for my kids.
Great, thank you. Scott Ottenberg, been on the city council since 2021, chair of the Economic Development Committee since 2022. Lived here in Wildwood for 28 years. Lived at the same address that entire time. Married with 2 kids and 3 grandchildren. The 3 grandchildren all live here in town. Electrical engineer by background, but did not want to sit at a design board when I got out of engineering school. So always in sales and marketing. I worked for many years over here at Cooper Busman as their VP of sales. And then last 2 years, I bought a small company out of Kansas City that deals a lot in automation type products, components primarily, and opened an office for them here in the St. Louis area. And now my only real professional pursuit is my city council work. Councilmember Dodwell.
Katie Dodwell, I've lived out here for 32 years. I was down in front of St. Louis County Council complaining about the erosion and the development that was going on out here. So I was a big proponent of the city becoming Wildwood, but at that time I had 2 young boys, which, as everyone knows, entertain you more than you need. I've been on council for over 15 years. I can't even count now, it's terrible. But I'm very passionate about the city continuing to be successful. I worked in IT for 35 plus years for a while. I worked at the same place as Gina did, St. Louis Community College. And so we've got some background there. I've got 2 grown sons, one who is a self-employed photographer. He worked for Bass Pro for a while and then decided to go out on his own. So he's hopping all over the world taking photos for companies. And then I have another son who works as an auditor for a company here in town. Used to be Brown Smith Wallace, and quite honestly, I can't remember the name of the new company, but it's nationwide kind of thing. So I'm pretty proud of both of them. And I've got 2 grandkids, twins, boy and a girl. And the little girl came out 2 minutes late, but later than her brother did, but she still likes to tell him she's the boss. So that keeps us busy. And right now I'm working at a local church here just as their office manager. So.
Thank you. So I think what we'll do is we'll skip over the new economic development manager just for the time being and save her introduction for when we get to that point. So City Administrator Lee, if you'd like to give us a 90-second thumbnail.
Of course.
Your background.
We're gonna get Joe's intro too. Good. In this case, thank you, Chair Thomas Lee, City Administrator for the City of Wildwood. Been City Administrator since July of last year, but used to sit in the Economic Development Communications Chair. So very used to the committee, but before this, I was a government consultant on communications and specifically digital communications. That's the quick and dirty of it.
All right, very good. And now to Director Vunich, Director of Planning and Parks, and he's the gentleman that I'll provide a little bit of background here who has the unenviable position of being the guy that everybody calls when they don't know who else to call. So
I think that mantle is being passed to Mr. Lee. My name is Joe Vunich. I'm the Director of Planning and Parks. Been here since the incorporation of the city, and then prior to that, I had the pleasure of knowing Mr. Mayberry because I worked at St. Louis County in the Department of Planning for 10 plus years.
I wasn't gonna rat you out with that.
and Ms. Lobeck.
Oh, well, I'm married, got 4 kids, 7 grandsons, no girls. I I started working at Southwestern Bell when I was 19 years old, stayed there for 17 years. And took some time off to raise my kids and then started working at Rockwood School District, then Brentwood School District, then Jennings. I retired from there and came here. So that's all.
And how many years with the city?
8.
Okay, very good, very good.
Yeah, this was my retirement job.
I got one of those too,
Yeah.
All right, very good. Thank you, everyone. Now I'm going to turn things over to City Administrator Lee to provide an introduction for the Communications and Economic Development Manager.
Certainly. Thank you, Chair Ottenberg. In this case, we've been providing, the department's been providing the committee direction on an interview process we've been doing to replace my former
City
position.
Administrator Lee,
Oh.
I apologize. It was just pointed out to me that in terms
Oh,
of
my
doing
goodness.
introductions, we forgot
Yeah.
Mr. Hopper, Mr. Jaxi, and Ms. McCutcheon.
We did.
Who are attending and participating by way of Zoom. So my apologies to the three of you. Starting with Ms. McCutcheon, would you like to provide us with a little bit of background?
Yes, first of all, I apologize. I don't know what's going on with my computer, but I have my video on, but I don't know that you all can see me, so I apologize for that.
We can.
I was watching the incorporation of Wildwood and was paying particular attention to their vision and their mission. So in July of '96, I moved my 2 sons to Wildwood because that's where I wanted them to grow up. Plus, they are an excellent school district. I was appointed in 2011 and reelected every 2 years since then. I have 2 degrees in political science, where previously I was an executive director of a government agency that dealt with all the North County municipalities. I also worked on the federal government level. I enjoy being a representative to Ward 5. I think of myself as a public servant and not a politician. Again, I have 2 sons. One owns McCutcheon Construction, and the other one owns an athletic training company. And I have 5 grandchildren all under the ages of 6. So when I'm not doing city business, I'm playing grandma. I'm retired and I'm loving it.
Thank you, Councilmember McCutcheon. Councilmember Hopper, would you provide us with a little introduction to yourself, please?
Sure. My name's Nathan Hopper. I've been in the city of Wildwood about 6.5 years. Moved here from Webster Groves. I have lived here with my wife and 2 sons. One that's 8, the other is 1. So always keeping things busy. Currently, I am vice president of a digital marketing agency in Webster Groves.
All right, very good. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Councilmember Jaxi, if you would provide us with an introduction, please.
Sure. My name is Rob Jaxi. I am a retired colonel from the United States Air Force, served 25 years retiring out of Scott Air Force Base. I now teach junior ROTC. I started teaching junior ROTC 6 years ago in University City and then transferred to Lafayette High School this past summer. We've been residents of Wildwood now for 9 years. I've been on the council for almost 4 of those and have a daughter and 2 grandchildren that are also Wildwood residents, as well as a son who's deployed and a daughter who's a police officer in Ellisville.
Thank you, Councilmember Jaxi, and I've said this before and I will say it again. Thank you for your service to the country. All right, moving right along here to the introduction of the Communications and Economic Development Manager, City Administrator Lee.
Thank you, Chair Ottenberg.
Thank
So the department and the city as a whole, after I was moved to the city administrator position, has been looking to fill the communications and economic development role. That being said, we did have a pretty exhaustive interview process and had quite a few candidates that came through the door. That being said, we had someone that has extensive experience here in our town center area with St. Louis Community College Wildwood branch. Worked on multiple campaigns with them, is very plugged into what's going on the ground here anyways, and we saw a natural fit here. So I will pass it over to Gina Tart, our new Communications and Economic Development Manager.
Thank you. I am really excited to be here. As Thomas said, I was at St. Louis Community College at Wildwood for the past 9 years, doing campus marketing communications. I also did some district-wide communications as the communications manager. Before I came to the community college, I was the director of communications for Webster's Business School. And in that role, I traveled internationally and promoted the school around the world. Earlier than that, I was in the Rockwood School District on the communications team. I started my career in ad agency and a marketing firm. I grew up in Wildwood. I went to Lafayette High School, went to Mizzou for my undergrad in journalism, and then got my master's at Webster. So I love Wildwood. My kids go to school in Wildwood. It's a great place to be, and I'm really excited to be on your team.
We are happy to have you here. Best of luck. Let us know how we can help. All right, moving right along then, update on business changes and other business news. So City Administrator Lee, back to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair Ottenberg. In this case, obviously, the first item here, we do have the Communications and Economic Development Manager role filled. So welcome, Ms. Tart. Appreciate you being here, and it's already been doing a great job. We look forward to seeing her contributions. The other big news today, recently we found that the property at 16590 Manchester Road, the former Jack in the Box, has been sold to Sammy's Southern Kitchen and more. It's been over 5 years since that property went vacant from the Jack in the Box. Gorgian Acquisitions came in. It's actually, if you can remember, the owner of I think it was like over half of the Jack in the Box went bankrupt back in, I think it was 2019. So they were going through that. They closed this one much earlier than that, but went bankrupt. And at that point, it did get sold out from the bank, and Gorgian Acquisitions, an investment firm from New York, came in and bought that property. And they have been trying, they tried to fix it up, but then they found that they just didn't feel it was putting in the investment to really clean it up like we wanted them to. It's been, back and forth with the city with them. It's been a pleasure relationship, because at the end of the day, they did find somebody that's going to utilize it for a fast food use, which is key here. Sammy's Southern Kitchen, they currently have a location over in St. Peters, Missouri. So they have somewhat of a footprint, and they are kind of a locally owned business, only one chain. This is their second. It's ran by a gentleman and his 3 brothers. So the staffing issue, I've been told, is not going to be too big of an issue. So that's good to hear. And overall, I mean, they're gearing up. They're going to have to do a couple of improvements on the interior. There may be some work with the planning department to make sure that the exterior, depending on what they want to do, goes through that process. But overall, the use is permitted. So it should be a pretty quick and seamless process.
Councilmember Dapple.
Are they aware of the plumbing issues in that facility?
I would assume, I had a pretty short conversation with them. I met the individual just the other day when they came in for some paperwork, but they had to get going. But that being said, did not get to ask that question. It was pretty obvious whenever I was told it, the pipe being burst. I can't imagine that they could have got away with not disclosing that. If they had any type of inspection, that should have been caught. That being said, more information will be provided to them, but unfortunately, this isn't they've closed on the sale, unfortunately. If that, I think they know about it and probably got a hopefully a decrease in price.
Is there a question down here? Yeah, all right, very good. Ms. Lobeck, if you would, with me sitting with my back to the screen, I can't see if anybody's raising their hand. So if you see a hand raised, feel free to say something.
Don't have to pay attention.
City Administrator Lee, so Sammy's Southern Kitchen, I think I can tell by the name what type of cuisine it is.
Yeah, so it is fried seafood. There are po' boys. They've got just Southern comfort food, burgers, fries, fried shrimp, the type of really comfort food is a good word for it.
Okay.
They do have the ability to have a drive-through at that facility, which is unique here in Wildwood. So the hope would be that they would try to utilize that function, and I do think that it could be a popular spot if it's done tastefully. So we're looking forward to seeing them open. We'll be working with them, but it might be a second for them to get opened up, but they have closed on the property. So I'm thinking they're going to be moving pretty quickly to get in there and start turning a profit on that investment.
Well, I guess congratulations to everybody involved in that. That sounds like a great addition to the community, especially the drive-through for people that want to get some quick, fast food. Now they've got a place to go in our city. So
And given how long that's sat vacant for,
It's,
big one.
Yes, and it just kind of shows a bigger trend too with the food industry. It's rebounding here in Wildwood. We were just having a conversation before the recent election in February because we had gotten news that Benedetto's was closing. Unfortunately, Benedetto's remains still vacant at this time, but Intellica is working to try to get that area property filled. That being said, we've had just in the last couple months, I mean, we go back a little bit, JB Wellness opened up a cafe and they serve food, but it's more so of a slushy smoothie type place. But there's also been Mint and Martini that recently opened. And we've also seen the Local House that has been a very, very big hit. We just recently had, as a city, had a ribbon cutting ceremony there. So seeing another restaurant come in is huge. Not to mention Lucky Dog Central will be serving food as well. And they should be opening here shortly. I'll be mentioning that in a minute, but it goes to show there's been quite a rebound on the food side. So we're very happy to see that.
and then we have Good News Brewing.
Yep.
That should be opening. Is that scheduled for?
There's no scheduled opening. If everything goes according to plan, the city council did move to permit the microbrewery and restaurant associated use with the site-specific ordinance at the last council meeting that went through. That's the first step in a longer process. That being said, we've recently received notification that they have submitted some plans to MSD for consideration since they'll be adding parking. In this case, once that comes through, we should be receiving copies ourselves, but the goal from the owner has been to get the paperwork figured out and get the plans through planning and zoning on our end, but hopefully have some type of soft opening without the full rebuild or rebranding of that building sometime in 2025, early 2025, but we can't necessarily put a time on it since we haven't gotten a set of plans yet.
All right,
A
very good.
question on that too, is this, I assume it's the same owners as the Good News Brewing down in Defiance?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. I've been there, it's very good.
Yeah, they
Great.
own they have a lot of locations. They've actually grown. They started in 2018. They have locations in Augusta, Defiance, they have St. Charles City and O'Fallon. And all of those have been wildly popular and they brew all of their beer right now in Augusta. And their overall goal, and it's a phased approach, this is not something that's under consideration by the city now, would be to eventually have some type of brewing mechanism here in the city of Wildwood as well.
Yeah.
So good to see that. And I know that they've been dabbling in malt liquors too, which is great to see. It just seems like they're growing exponentially. It's a very popular business. And if you have been there, their pizza is very good.
It's very- yes,
too.
we had-
It's, yeah,
good, yeah.
they don't serve anything else. They keep it really simple, but it's actually a very popular approach. And I know one of the things the owner was really mentioning quite a few times was that a lot of their Defiance customers actually are from Wildwood. They're bike riders and they happen to be up in the area and they stop by and that's what kind of gave them the idea to start here in Wildwood.
It's a regular stop on my ride.
Yeah, so it's, he knows, Sharon knows, but in that case, we're looking forward to that piece. Couple more quick notes, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
I did want to note that we did receive notice. I know a lot of people got this notice. It was like an email blast that was sent out back on July 12th that Bank of America over at 2412 Taylor Road is closing its physical location at that space. They are, if a resident hears this, they are not closing your account. They are just closing that physical location and they do have another location in Ellisville. An interesting note on this, earlier this year, we actually were looking into, there was supposed to be mass closings of Bank of Americas across the US. About 62 were named at the beginning of 2024. Fortunately, at that time, Wildwood was not listed on there. It was just Arnold, Missouri. And as time went on, this kind of came out of nowhere and the departments reached out to Bank of America to try to talk to the branch manager and we haven't really gotten too far. So it seems like this might have been, cutting off some of the fat as a nationwide business. And at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough after those 62. So maybe they widened the scope. The other really important consideration there is the fact that that property, that parcel, it's the one space over there in that Deerberg's Plaza that is actually not owned by Deerberg's Markets. So it's owned by Bank of America, meaning could be good and could be bad in the sense that it could be good because now they have a large incentive to sell that property or lease it. Versus if they had a long-term lease with Deerberg's, then they could have ended up in a situation like we had with PNC Bank where the lease just goes on for a long time, and with a big organization, they just pay the check each month. So in that case, it seems like there should be some action. Other than that, and department's available for any questions if needed, but also with that. Lucky Dog Central actually just got, and this is a big announcement, they just got the reoccupancy permit. They've done a lot of work on the interior there. I know Chair Ottenberg and I had been there for a recent event, but overall, it's been a long haul for that couple, and we're happy to see them gonna be opening here in the next couple weeks. So it's getting very close. They are currently trying to work with Miss Becky Salsa Shack to potentially have her create her salsa there in the kitchen. So that's gonna have to go ahead and get approved for the site-specific ordinance. So that'll be going to planning and zoning, but as of today, they have a variance to operate for the time being,
90 days.
90 days. That's good news. Not quite good news brewing, but it is good news. And then last but not least, I know there's others on here, but just quick note, JB Wellness Cafe recently completed the construction of their new patio on the out there, and it just kind of goes to show the revitalization, not only by the two businesses, JB Wellness and CrossFit over there, and the SSM Health Physical Therapy, but it seems like they're really investing in that little trifecta business, and we're really happy to see that. And not only that, the Historic Preservation Commission did approve, and Mr. Vunich might be able to provide additional info here, but they had originally thought of having some kind of walk-up window. But the patio obviously had to be done first, so that might be in their sights here in the near future. But other than that, the department's available for any questions.
Any questions for the city administrator?
Just one, and this is just curiosity more than anything, but the JB Wellness, is that the same lady owner who did like Fantastic Cakes and were the different ownership now?
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
okay.
in this case, so Fantastic Cakes, and where to find them, they closed, I believe it was October of last year. They had a 1-year lease. The owner of CrossFit purchased the property, gave that 1-year lease to that person, the individual renting that space. That came up, and unfortunately, you know, they found a new space over in Lake St. Louis.
Oh, they moved over that.
They did, well, at least that was the last, back in October of last
Sure,
year,
okay.
so it seemed like they were moving over there. And in this case now, it is now rented out by JB Wellness and then having SSM Health Physical Therapy category in them. But good story there too, because the SSM Health Physical Therapy grew from just a small, you know, one physical therapist kind of working out of CrossFit in a secluded area to now having 3 full-time physical therapists and administrative staff. So it's slowly growing, and the owner of CrossFit, Mr. Petruso, has been an excellent partner to the city. So good to see that work over there.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Any other questions? Okay, so moving on then, there's 3 items here which are, I think, all somewhat similar in nature. So starting with item D, review of brochures for retail plazas and current vacancies. So we will turn things over to City Administrator Lee again.
Yes, thank you, Chair Ottenberg. So in this case, the department wanted to kind of provide, the reason why we provide the brochures today, we wanted to provide kind of images to go along with the occupancy report. I know just looking at, you know, data numbers can sometimes be a little redundant. We wanted to provide the brochures not only as a resource, because if someone were to give you a call and we're interested in potentially leasing a space, this does encompass the most popular properties in Wildwood. And this is the most current up to July 23rd of 2024. So as of today, these are the vacancies and in Wildwood currently. So the other piece with this is that it has the contact information on there. So the hope is, you know, not only are we talking about it now, but if any businesses are listening, they can get this information from our website now. It's all consolidated, but this has always been on the site selection page for our website where they can go through and take a peek at each individual area that we have highlighted on a little map for them. But main piece to take into consideration is that this is different from the one we had last month. Obviously, we didn't have a quorum, but in this case, we lost the Jack in the Box property, so we actually got to make the stack a little bit shorter here, so. This is supposed to be just a handy dandy guide for you all to use if you get a call from someone that might be interested in renting or leasing space, owning space here.
Thank you. So that concludes the presentation of item D. Are there any questions for the city administrator on the review of brochures of the retail platform and so on? I still have any hands up, so I think we're good there. So we'll move on to item E, review of the 2022 occupancy report, and just a little bit of background here with several new members of this committee and now with the new economic development manager on board. The city administrator and I thought it would be appropriate to review that occupancy report from 2022. One of the things that we will hear from time to time is that there's no business in the town center, that our occupancy rate is way too high. And city administrator and I got to talking about this about 2 years ago, I guess it was.
Too low.
And or way too low. Yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize. You know, that our occupancy rate is way too low. And city administrator and I got to talking about this, and we said, you know what, we hear a lot of rumors about this. Let's do a study. Let's try to get some metrics that we can use to establish where exactly does Wildwood stand in relationship to some other municipalities. So that's the reason for the report. And with that, city administrator Lee, I will turn things over to you.
Thank you, Chair Ottenberg. In this case, and the data hasn't, a quick note, I know it says 2022, the data reporter or the generator that we used, we had canceled that subscription with CoStar because we had to move from a city-based or region-based market fee to a US-based market fee, which multiplied the cost to the city each year by 10. So in this case, we were able to kind of track, and we could, based off the information we've tracked, be able to base it off these flat numbers. But in this case, we have not seen significant change over, so these numbers should be relatively the same. We've seen actually probably a little bit of a pickup on the retail side, and the office space has pretty much 1 for 1. Each time we see an office close, we've seen it get filled back in. And we haven't seen many office closures. It's usually been the high ticket items have been more restaurants and home-based businesses that have not re-registered with us. That being said, it's important to note, as Chair Ottenberg had mentioned, that the occupancy, but also conversely, the vacancy rate in St. Louis County and the city is pretty similar. It's about a 2% difference from the county and the city. So it's not as much as some individuals may say that, hey, the entire city is vacant. It's actually very much in line with other cities in West County. On top of that, something that's important to note is the impact of having one, I remember this when we did this report originally, one major impact of Wildwood is just the total square footage available for retail space in Wildwood. Same for office space. We have less retail and office space overall than, you know, Ballwin, Ellisville, Chesterfield, obviously. Then we just do not have the same scale. So when we see a business close, that actually, you know, it hits our percentage a lot harder than it would if you see Chesterfield see a business close. You got to have multiple businesses close on their end to actually see the same impact of having, you know, one Benedetto's close here. So just a notation there that you could see huge fluctuations based off a restaurant closing or another large type shop. And, you know, you could see quite frankly, if you saw like a Schnucks or, you know, a Deerberg's close, that retail occupancy rate would drop significantly. So it also goes to show the importance of keeping our larger retail stores open, like Walgreens, Schnucks, Deerberg's, and, you know, places, you know, Starbucks, things along those lines. So that's the main piece. Also a notation at the back end, which is the way we get over $6 million in revenue each year, which is through our pools tax program. Goes to show the generator. It actually has a breakdown here at the very last page at the bottom, shows where that 1% countywide sales tax goes to. It's broken out over a plethora of different items countywide, but that last bit, that 1%, the overall amount of 8.238 goes to the county, but there is a 1% sales tax that goes to our pool tax, which then, as a Group B city, we get a portion amount of that, we actually benefit versus a Chesterfield, which would be a Pool A city who gets to retain a certain percentage of their overall tax that they charge in their city, but then have to give up the rest to cities that are in the pool, the B classification. So just a note that it is important to, you know, support businesses in Wildwood and also keep keep them generating revenue too, especially if they are providing some type of sales tax, because that does overall. And as a county too, I mean, if our residents, it's in another note, if this remains the same and it would take the state legislature to intervene to stop the pool tax program, which is something we do keep an eye on and something we keep a very close eye on, but if a resident is to go to Chesterfield to buy something, it does support Wildwood in a sense, but it doesn't have the same effect if they buy it here, because slowly but surely we can record those numbers. So,
Does
departments
that
of
make
bill-
sense to you guys? Do you understand?
yeah, it's
This is kind of a strange equation.
it is, and it's not used in many places, so it's an interesting piece, but
It's
it's
the only city in the state, or the only county in the state that is used,
yes.
isn't it?
Yes, in the state of Missouri, yes, it is. There is no other equation or program like this. That being said, there are other different taxing districts, but it's not appropriated like this is. You know, at the end of the day, you can almost attribute our pool tax money that goes into our operating fund, that pays for our entire police force. I mean, that's the importance of the pool tax program. Obviously, we would have a large percentage of that made up too. We wouldn't have nothing, but it would be a lot less than what we're currently bringing in. So, other than that though, our current, our vacancy and occupancy rates are looking good. That being said, it would be more so creating more retail space or more office space that could help.
All right. Is there any questions for these?
Is it Ms.
Councilmember McCutcheon?
She's got her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw something out there. Having been on the town center update committee, it makes me recognize more, and I think a lot of people just think town center is where Deerbergs is. But that's not the case. And I know Mr. Vunich could give you the correct designations, but we have an education or institutional, historic, and he can tell you the rest of them, but it's not just where Deerbergs is as far as town center is located. And I think a lot of residents thinks when we say town center, that's what we're talking about, just FYI.
Thank you. Other questions for the city administrator on the occupancy report? Seeing none, we will move on to item F, the local economic report for Wildwood provided by the St. Louis Association of Realtors and Realtors Property Producers.
You said it for me there, Chair Ottenberg. The important piece there is this report was not developed by the department, but it is something that's provided to us by our partners over with the St. Louis Association of Realtors, someone that we check in with every now and then. And honestly, you know, at first it's just an attachment that you might not look into too much, but after, you know, taking a quick scan of it, there's actually some interesting data here, and they have been able to produce this report for us, which we are really appreciative of, because it kind of replaces some of the information we would have gotten from a program like CoStar. It's a similar software, and it allows us, they are very kind in the fact that they are willing to provide us with this type of report at any time that we'd request. So if we want to get updates on this, we could maybe bring this type of report back yearly, just to kind of keep a pulse on it. But some interesting items that I found, and this was also, a couple of these were echoed in the occupancy report, but population density is a good one to point out, and it's on, there's no page numbers on here, sorry. The population density here in Wildwood, and this is similar to what we had in the occupancy report, is 529.5 per square mile versus St. Louis County, which is almost 2,000. So that goes to show just Wildwood is a vast city, and overall, we don't have the area of town or surrounding town center and in town center, it slowly disperses outward. And as you get west of 109, it really does take away those numbers. So end of the day, it does help us in the sense that it's why we have our zoning here in the town center, because we have the housing density down here. So that's an important note that I wanted to point out. Also, the total daytime population, I think we did discuss this back in April, but just wanted to refresh everyone who might not have been here. The daytime population is interesting because this has been backed up on other reports as well. We see around 10,000 people leave Wildwood each day. So it goes to show that when you do hear those rumors that, there might not be a lunch crowd, there could be an argument in support of that, even though there still are 24,000 residents, in Wildwood at that time. So it's not necessarily, not everybody's gone, but a lot of people do leave for work in the morning. On top of that, some other important statistics that I want to note. That population density too, just as a reference point, it goes from that 570 number to 363.5, so gets much, much lower, which these are the statistics that large franchises, but also large businesses in general, developers too, they're looking at when they're trying to make a decision. The first couple that we just went over may not be too supportive of providing a nice retail shop or a restaurant, whatever it might be. But the other side, the flip side here is when we can get into more of the median income, average income. That's where Wildwood kind of takes up some ground. So sorry, wrong page there. There
is money to spend here.
There is money to spend. The message is there's money to spend here in Wildwood with a average household income of 193,000 versus the median household, which is at 141, which that difference between the average and the median actually just goes to show that there are some people in Wildwood that are extremely, extremely wealthy. So there are some individuals that would definitely have the ability to buy some of the more niceties in life. So those type of retail centers could potentially see Wildwood as an option, a location to relocate to. On top of that, and this doesn't say this in the report, but one thing to note is when we're talking about statistics that businesses are looking at, traffic studies are really important too, traffic counts in our town center. I believe the number is 22, I don't have it in front of me, but 22,000, if I remember correctly.
That's the number you've mentioned to me.
Yeah, so 22,000 we have typically on our main streets here in the town center. Usually they're looking around 45. Like your average McDonald's is gonna look, not saying that we want a McDonald's whatsoever, but they're gonna usually look for 45,000 cars per day. So we don't see that traffic. 100 gets a little closer to that number, but it's still very far off. But the per capita incomes, this is per individual in the house, still high as well. So even if you have a single family household, it's higher than the average, and definitely higher than the county and Missouri by quite a bit. And then the average disposable income at 132,000 is pretty impressive when you compare it to other cities. Couple other notations, and I thought this was really interesting, and it's from the US Labor Bureau, but the last piece is just the employment cap. So like, what do Wildwood residents do? We see that a lot are in the technical field and, engineers, lawyers, things along those lines. A lot of finance and insurance people, healthcare and social assistance individuals. So we have a lot of well-educated individuals here, owners of business, things along those lines. So it goes to show, and it goes hands in hand with the amount of income that each household's bringing into. So overall, I mean, I would say that what we don't have and maybe the daytime traffic and the actual population, we make up for with our, just with the raw statistics of actually who lives here. It's a good market to be in.
Very good.
Department's available for any questions. Sorry.
All right. Any questions for the city administrator? Okay, very good. Thank you. We move along to items ready for action. Item number A is the Route 66 grant program. So once again, City Administrator Lee, back to you.
Thank you, Chair Ottenberg. I will introduce this and I'll let Mr. Vunich elaborate a little bit further, but overall, there's been discussion at the Historic Preservation Commission regarding the creation of a Route 66 grant program. What this would potentially do is provide a city-sponsored grant funds for potential owners of businesses or mostly businesses, that's the focus here, that are located off of Route 66. Say they may have some issues with their roof, or it might not look too aesthetically pleasing. If they want to make those improvements, this would allow and would choose a couple, maybe, it would be up to 25,000 per year, and breaking them out into maybe 3 to 5 grants at $4,000 to $5,000 a piece was what we were talking about. to improve their facade, improve the area in front of the actual that is adjacent to Route 66. We get a lot of reports that, people come to visit not only this area, but Route 66 in general. They ride, people from Germany, people from Switzerland, people come from all over the world to come check out Route 66. So the hope would be to beautify that area along that historic corridor. And I know we've had our one of our planners, Robin Keefe, here at the city. She has done an excellent job trying to drum in support for these businesses and also the corridor as a whole. But what this would do is kind of gauge interest. Is something that was brought forth by the Historic Preservation Commission, but obviously the next step would be to discuss this amongst the Economic Development Committee members. This would definitely be an economic driver. That being said, it would come out of the city's budget. So this is something to consider. I'll pass this over to Joe to add a little bit more context, but it's more so to support business here on Route 66 and, help kind of put an exclamation point on that tourism that we see for people that are visiting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. With your permission, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed.
Mr. Lee did a very good job of giving an overview, so I really don't have much to add. Other than in 2026, it'll be the 100th anniversary of Route 66. And so the idea was by the Historic Preservation Commission is to try to build some momentum for that 100th anniversary and create what we would hope, being the Historic Preservation Commission, and I believe the Departments of Administration and Planning Parks, kind of a tourism opportunity along Route 66. As the memorandum identifies, there's 4 of our historic communities located along there, and there are really some unique gems that I think we could market, and with the grant program, assist in that marketing and upgrades. The communities are obviously Grover Pond, Hollow, and Fox Creek. And just like I said, there's Stovall's Grove, there's the Wildwood Historical Society, there's the Big Chief Restaurant, there's Old Pond School. There's just a surprisingly number, in my mind, of great opportunities. We presented this particular grant program to City Council. City Council authorized additional research. Mr. Lee, Mr. Young, and I discussed this at length. There is an opportunity. There are grant programs that are administered by cities. The devil's in the details, but before we got too far along in investing resources and time, we wanted to present it to the Economic Development Committee, because I think it's uniquely tied to this group. Route 66 Manchester Road could be something that's very unique, and no other municipality in our vicinity, I believe, has taken as much advantage as we could. Pacific has to a certain degree, maybe a little in Eureka, but no one has I think the original location and unique opportunity. I've kind of addressed it. This wouldn't be a robust program. We're talking about maybe $25,000 overall each year, a limited number of grants. And there would be parameters on the grant recipients, meaning you have to be in business for X amount of time or participate in a program or events for an X amount of time, so that the taxpayers and you as the City Council committee, know that there is a good return on your investment. And so tonight we were hoping to get feedback from you about it, and if possible, an endorsement of at least moving forward with that further research. Thank you.
Are there questions for the Director of the Regional Program, Councilmember Mabry?
I saved the best or the worst for last, Director. So it sounds to me like this would be a 5% scale version of the ambitious, and would sound like much more visible or more visibly accurate advertised programs of other cities that were the last few pages of this particular historic building attachment. So $25,000 gross for all grants a given year, or whatever the extent of number of blocks of what we're calling Route 66. This would sound to me to be either ways of Route 66ing the road, making existing edifices that look more 40s and 60s aesthetically. You find a ramshackle ranch that's got a terrible looking roof, you say, well, we'll come in and you're on fixed income, just a couple, we'll put a $3,000 roof on your place. And we'll paint the front of your house in 50s pastels to make it look more like a building did along Route 66. Or are we just doing anything to advertise, again, more visibly than anything else, it sounds like, to tell people that we'll pay for, did you know that we'd pay you to repave your driveway that's all chipped up and broken and weeds growing up all around it? For $25,000, it seems like no real one ambitious initiative could even sprout from seed. So it's just wondering if there's a definition of what the perfect applicant would look like. I wrote down earlier today, are there minimum criteria qualifications? You'd be able to communicate to certain properties gently, but you need not apply, because whatever the criteria were to spend our precious 25 grand, they wouldn't think that they should creatively dream up ways that they could get a piece of that. I hope I've been vague enough.
First and foremost, the focus of the grant program would be toward commercial businesses. The description of a roof replacement or a driveway improvement on a residential property, we as the city can use community development block grant funds if certain income parameters are met by the property owner. So this would be more for commercial businesses. And then in some instances, our institutional or service users along the corridor, for example, some of the churches or Metro West Fire Protection District, just giving them small grants to basically sign their properties as part of Route 66, as part of the 100th anniversary. So we have a separate program to help residential users already that's administered through St. Louis County to the city of Wildwood. So first and foremost, I don't think we would be looking in a residential sector per se. This is more of an economic development tool and tourism. And then is there a perfect grant applicant? I'm sure there is. The one that Robin Keefe always speaks to is Seabaugh Furniture Restoration. It's a unique building. It's colorful, but certainly from that perspective, we could maybe do something to kind of maybe not tone it down, but focus it more. And then there's like Sonny's, the automotive repair,
It's
where
amazing.
maybe we
It's
could
fun.
do something that just in terms of landscaping along the frontage to kind of address the view of all the cars waiting to be repaired. So I see it as more commercial, and I'm sure there's a perfect applicant out there, but at the moment, I wouldn't necessarily pick one over another.
Councilmember Dodwell.
I think this is a really great idea, to be able to provide our local businesses a little bit of a handout to spiff up their places a little bit. A couple of years back, I think I've told this story to other economic development groups, but my husband and I are standing at Ted Drew's, and this couple comes up behind us and started talking, and they said, "Oh, where do you live?" And I said, "Wildwood." And they go, "Oh, we were just there this morning. We were following Route 66 from California. We're from California. We came all the way through and we drove down through that pond area and this and that." And so just even what we've done so far, there's people coming from all over the place that we don't even know about. So I think if we can do something to clearly define the route from start to end so that we direct some traffic, either with traffic signs or just informational signage along the route. Identify from the city's perspective, as you just said, Joe, places along the route that might need a little spiffing up or cleanup. And help them through that process. We're not gonna be able to force them to do much of anything, but through our city codes, we may be able to get them to move forward with a few things and use these grants. The other major piece is we're gonna have to do some kind of marketing and advertising, not only here locally, but in whatever the communication side of things can do through national pieces of literature or something so that we can draw more people to the town center area. And then in that process, talk about, okay, we've gone from the old Route 66 and here's today's future. Here's what the future's brought to the area. So that we can then get people to stop at the restaurants or use the Y, because they've been riding in the car for 1,000 miles today. Something along those lines. So, thank you. Just thought.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Hopper, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think just, I guess, culminating some of the ideas that I already said of definitely having a clear designation of this is the boundary of who would be eligible for this. As Councilmember Dowell said, mapping out actual Route 66 and saying, if you're within a mile or whatever that is, and that's what can be determined. But I think a little bit of my concern with that, honestly, $25,000 is, I don't know, I think might end up being a little bit small for, depending on the size of the business, to get much really going. I understand there might be a matching component, and I don't know budget wise what we would really be looking at, but I think if you're making a good ditch effort, I like this idea. I'm concerned 25,000 may almost not be enough for certain businesses. And then my last concern, not really about this, but just in general, we tend to, as a city, be somewhat tough for commercial entities to come in and set up shop in Wildwood, and making sure that this was set up in a way that we made sure to support that and hopefully bring new business into Wildwood as well.
Disagree with some of that there, and I think that there's a good point that you're maybe making there, is that this would make some of the small aesthetic improvements potentially, but maybe I heard it mentioned tonight, it was something we had discussed too, is that's what we're looking for feedback for as well, is that maybe this is something where, we could utilize these funds for, you're gonna get the grant and you have to do it for like some kind of commemorative signage for the 100th anniversary for Route 66, something that shows that, hey, this is a historic marker and brings attention to the fact that, hey, you're a business on Route 66. Because that is the natural asset here versus maybe something that might be a little bit more blended, like I think it could be somewhat tied into, though, like a Sonny's Automotive that gets landscaping done. But making sure that maybe that could be a component of the grant. If you were to receive it, you have to match it. Obviously, that was anticipated, but you would also have to have some type of signage added, no matter what, that is commemorative of that 100th anniversary. Maybe that's how we address some of those concerns. Joe, did you want to add that?
Director Vunich.
Well, Mr. Chair, I think Mr. Hopper makes a good point. I don't, from our conversations at Historic Preservation Commission and internally, we've never really talked about new business development, but for example, Lucky Dog Cafe, that's a new business, it's reopening. Maybe there was something we could have done there with a small grant program to get them kind of maybe some additional signage for Route 66, but also help with their opening. So it's an interesting option and one we hadn't talked about. So thank you.
You're welcome. Councilmember Dodwell, did you have a question?
It's okay. He took the
Oh, sorry.
same thought.
My apologies.
So,
You apologize.
so City Administrator Lee, and maybe this is for the new economic development manager as well. You sort of alluded to something there with the signage. And I wonder if that wouldn't contribute to maybe like an overall plan to, for lack of a better term, Route 66 eyes that corridor, so it begins to look more like it looked maybe back in the 40s and 50s. And
That's what I was
60s.
kind of thinking too. The department, we could clearly look into that, but maybe there's something that, and it would kind of be more like artwork, but having something that's more, it's celebrating that 100th anniversary. But it also gives you that throwback look to the 50s, where I think that's the important concept to grasp here, is having those colors that really flash you back. Then obviously, I think Ms. Dodd will hit it very correctly of, you're gonna have to promote the heck out of this too. You gotta have this be riding right along a large communication effort to get out just the 100th anniversary, but also just Route 66 in total and what the city did to bring attention back to that corridor, which.
The other question I have for you is the figure of $25,000. Remind me again how we came up with that figure.
It's around 5,000-ish per business that could apply, or it could be a combination, but it was like not to exceed 10, right, Joe? If that's okay, so in that case, it could be, 1 to 2 businesses, but could be 3 if they're all, looking at like $8,000 worth of improvements. Some of that would need looks like, I would say, go towards a sign, some type of Route 66 signage that would be appropriate, given our sign code.
I think from the perspective of the Historic Preservation Commission, I think they wanted to be a little conservative and maybe step out the program instead of run out the program.
Okay.
To kind of see how it's received, get all the parameters in place, fix the ones that maybe we didn't think worked as well as we had hoped. And then if it is successful, then it would be up to the city council as part of a budgetary process if you wanted to increase it in future years.
Perfect. So I guess that was my concern, because I heard several people allude to the fact the $25,000 figure may not be enough, but maybe a trial run before launching into it. Or, pardon the expression, is, a better way to go. Councilmember Hopper, I believe you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry to pop in there again, but one thought I have as we've been talking about this is it seems like the idea of signs has come up quite a bit, which is fine. It seems like a grant program would be a little more indicated to sort of what the business owner was looking to do versus what we're kind of wanting them to do, and I think that. Maybe the answer to the signage is maybe we do it's a separate program. Maybe we do a signage program where we give businesses the option of, a matching fund. And then we, as a city, could kind of go through and have a design put together that would be a consistent aesthetic. But if they were willing to match funds to put a sign up, and then maybe there's some additional marketing around Route 66 that as a city we put out there through, maybe inexpensive social media, something like that, that features those businesses. So it gives them a little kickback to it, but then it kind of incentivizes them to also put that consistent signage in, all down Route 66, which also then sort of helps signifies like, hey, you actually are on Route 66 and not where we pulled you over to another block because this is where a business is we want you to go.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Dodwell.
Question in regards to marketing this. Are we going to market it just to the businesses that are currently along there? Or could we use this as another tie-in to perhaps get additional businesses of all sorts of types into the city of Wildwood, number one? And then the other comment I wanted to make was, I don't want to oversign the road, if you know what I'm talking about. If we have a sign every 30 feet, that may be a little too much, but.
That may be 2 points to that question, but that may be the kicker here is that, hey, get them while that piece of it, the signage part is that we're adding two or three signs that are on that portion of the corridor, hurry up, in that case, and they would need to apply for it, and that would have to be properly spread out. But the other piece would, could you repeat that other part of the question?
Don't worry about it.
I think she was a little, and correct me if I'm wrong, I
No.
think you may have a concern about sign clutter.
Yeah.
We don't want to bring up new
One-
people to town.
And I think you can limit that piece, maybe it's something where you put a total number on the end of it and.
Mhm. Or a sign every so many
Yeah.
thousand feet or something, so that it's not overpopulated in that regard, but also it would just be nice to maybe get the businesses together and sit down and say, how can we market this as a whole? What would you be willing to participate in before we give them a grant program or anything? Just ask them what kinds of things would they like to see in that particular area so that we can promote them, the city, and Route 66. Then we can determine how the grant program would work.
So I think Director Vunich may have alluded to the devil is in the details.
I know,
For
it
the
is, it's a lot of details.
There is, and there, I think the timing from the perspective of the Department of Administration and the Department of Planning, as well as the Historic Preservation Commission is, as we enter into the budget season, we'd like to spend a little more time on those details. And then maybe present this as a component of the discussion for fiscal year 2025. And certainly not to put Gina on the spot, but I think the marketing component toward trying to develop new ideas, new businesses would probably be in her kind of strike zone, so to speak. And the thing I would like to offer, we have like the porch, and then we have other businesses that offer these kind of three French hens. Maybe if we could convince them with a little grant program to market some kind of Route 66 memorabilia that's tied to Wildwood, so people, people traveling on Route 66 want to take something home. And if it could have something that was Wildwood specific with Route 66, I don't know, I just think there's a lot of opportunities if the committee is willing to let us kind of pursue it.
I'm sorry, my brain kicked back in.
No, that's all right. I will get to you next. Councilmember Mabry has been more than patient waiting here.
Sorry.
No, I've been glad to keep listening to different successive committee members. What I'm noting is we're very quickly building ahead of steam, working through some of we're getting into the weeds here and not leaving you high and dry to just go invent something out of thin air. What I've noted the progression has been is just from a management background, I see a suspense date. We've got exactly a year and a half. No, we haven't. We've got exactly a year and less than a year and a half until January 26th, when this date kicks off for this celebration of this anniversary, which I hadn't known anything about before tonight. And whether it's having a bunch of the existing businesses get together and collude to come up with a scheme to self-advertise and self-promote a select grouping of them with a certain budget, or whether it's the city taking the reins and using the existing road easements to put up 8x12 signs where the city wants to show a 40s or 50s photograph of Sonny's garage, which had to have been a 40s or 50s gas station back then. And then the mentioned furniture shop, and then whatever other 4 to 6, 8 along a 2-mile stretch of what used to be Route 66. It's a city's initiative. It isn't having to take the time to, first of all, get these existing businesses, which I take it we're only going to be interested. We're not going to take an empty building and put a poster in front of it. But it's the city using its easement rights to go and put the sign up for however long a plywood and 4x4 sign would last for the celebration all through 26. That would be something that the local news would grab by its teeth. And when you're looking at promotion and advertisement and garnering attention. That's the kind of thing I'm hearing came from a growth of what the discussion started. Take it easy, go low and slow, build a framework. I'm looking at 2026 as the deadline to roll out, not just to have a vision of what someday we might roll out. And by the way, you need to quintuple that budget quickly so that you know what types of goals you can accomplish for the resources that you're going to put into accomplishing the suspense. I'm taking the floor. I got nothing to say, nothing more to say.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Dodwell and then Councilmember Hopper.
Just real quickly, I had noted down, has anybody been to the city of Cottleville in St. Charles County? I grew up out in St. Charles County and that looked a lot like what old Manchester, historic Manchester looked like when I was a kid. It was nothing. And I know we've talked about town center, et cetera, but it may behoove us to have city staff talk with Cottleville and find out how did they get it from 45 years ago being a wide spot in the road to being a pretty bustling place. Now, granted, I understand St. Charles County's building codes are totally different than ours and their development codes are totally different. And that's why we moved to Wildwood. But I'm just curious if that might not be a resource to investigate as a similar type of situation, because if you're down there, it looks like it did, only more expanded along that route when I was a kid, because they kept a lot of the same stuff, so.
Are you talking about the Mid Rivers portion? Or are you talking about the back end portion? near
No,
the
I'm talking
actual fire
about when
department?
you get off of 94
Yep.
and you head down towards Central School.
Where Frankie Martin's is?
Emos and.
Yeah. Mhm.
So it's at that.
That's
it's got
Cottleville,
that food
not-
truck garden.
Not O'Fallon, not St. Charles. It's just a wide spot in the road where old Central School, or I guess it's still Central School for Francis Howell. Back in that area.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Hopper.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I just think it's a good program. I think it's a good idea. I think sounds like for what you're looking for tonight, I'm happy to make a motion that we would endorse a grant program and some additional research into, as you said before, working out all of the inherent details of what that looks like. So, I mean, I'm happy to make a motion to endorse that.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilmember Hopper, second from Councilmember Dodwell. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion for, I guess the motion is for Director Lynch to proceed to prepare some legislation, correct?
I would prefer to have us three get into those details with the
Mhm.
city
Right.
attorney and then we'll get back to you. If you don't mind, I'd like to focus it here with the Economic Development Committee if there's no objection.
Okay,
Mhm.
perfect. All right.
Maybe come back to the next meeting with what you've figured out.
Councilmember Hopper, are you satisfied with that clarification of what we're going to be doing with your motion?
Yeah, that's 100% my intention is to just endorse the city to staff members to dig into this a little bit more and, like I said, really iron out a lot of that stuff to come back with a more fleshed out idea that we can take to council.
All right, perfect. Councilmember McCutcheon, were you wanting to make a comment?
The only thing that my comment would be is to have a matching with the business and the city rather than the city footing the whole bill. And then my other concern is if you're on a strip, what if one or two businesses participate, but the other ones don't? So how is that going to look and what is that impact going to be? It's my only two thoughts.
I believe the grants would be, well, this is just kind of spitballing here, but it would be based off the property owner, the ownership. So I mean, it could be a situation where you have, and we'll have to flesh out the details of what would be considered an improvement that would be eligible, but there may be a situation where there's one business that just doesn't care and doesn't want to apply for it, but the others do, and you may have still the eyesore in the middle, but then you still have two good looking spots. Better looking spots on a corridor that should see significant tourism in 2026. And could be kind of an injection of life, if you will. So it's kind of like, the goal is to kind of reemphasize and double down on that 100th birthday and make something out of that, and then leverage that as a general tool to recruit businesses to the Wildwood area to show, like, hopefully to be able to maybe build some events around that and just really kind of do a Route 66 type of year, that a lot of capabilities there. But the other question there, I mean, I think the matching part we had already discussed at 50%, we would have a 50% match.
You guys discussed how the matching may or may not work, or. what
Other
the
cities have seen-
logistics-
Sorry. Other cities have mentioned the match. That was a big component
Yeah.
of it. And they also, then the other piece is the component of you have to be within the city for a certain number of years afterwards. If you leave before that, then that money is then owed back to the city. So if you make an improvement and then you close your business, then at that point, there's something that kicks in. I know the city of Winsville does this, are not mentioned here, but I think it's 5 years you have to be in business after the improvement's made. They match up to 50% of the improvement. And then after 5 years, it's that 50% of that improvement doesn't cost the business owner a thing, but if they leave within that 5 years, then it's owed back to the city.
Mhm.
So it would look probably something like that, I would assume.
So,
Some of those details for you.
so City Administrator Lee, this may be going way too far down the road. I'm gonna throw it out there anyway. Should thought be given to some type of redesignation of Route 66 through our city as some type of a special corridor? Hopefully that makes sense with this, where as businesses change ownership, the requirement is that they adopt new signage that is sort of old style Route 66 type signage, so that eventually,
Those sorts of cities.
we so that eventually everybody has sort of the same look.
That's an excellent land use question. Good job. Hadn't even thought of that.
I think legally we'd have to talk with the city attorney, but I kind of like that idea, just moving forward to kind of start kicking that into gear.
I wouldn't want to change the building
No,
structure, but the
Right,
signage.
signage,
should
yeah.
be
like the
consistent.
font, maybe everyone has the same font for their wall signage.
Yeah.
They do in a lot of cities.
And I guess what I'm thinking too is that for those who may not be enthusiastic about the program in the beginning, we may be able to sell them with the able assistance of our new economic development manager on the idea of maybe even changing out some of their existing signage in favor of this new Route 66 type signage. I don't know, I'm just thinking way down the road.
Thank you all.
Okay, is there any more discussion on the Route 66 grant program? Seeing none, we will move along to general discussion of economic development in Wildwood.
Chair Ottenberg, don't we need a vote?
They already did.
Did we
Oh,
vote
they
on that?
didn't vote. There was a
Oh, we
motion
didn't
and a
vote.
second.
Okay, I
Sorry.
apologize. My apologies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were sleeping.
You are paying attention. Thank you very much. So we had a motion and we had a second to the motion for to proceed, and we had discussion, so now is the vote. So all those in favor of the motion to proceed with exploring, I guess, the best way to pursue this Route 66 grant program, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Ms. Lobeth. Okay, so now we move on to a general discussion of economic development in Wildwood. And one of the things I wanted to mention here, and it may be too soon, and possibly City Administrator Lee, you have not had a chance to review this yet with our new economic development manager, but I know Mayor Garitano has mentioned on several occasions the, I guess I'll call it the proliferation of healthcare related businesses in our city. Everything from CrossFit of Wildwood to SSM Healthcare. We have Anytime Fitness, the YMCA, JMB Wellness.
Yoga
And he,
locations.
yeah, and he has been looking for a way to possibly market the fact, well, yeah, several yoga locations, as Councilmember Dodwell mentioned. He has suggested that maybe we should explore a way to try to market Wildwood as sort of a health and wellness destination tied into the fact that we are located in sort of a rural area. So you have, then we have the asphalt hiking trails and biking trails throughout our city, the parks, et cetera, that would contribute to health and wellness. So just, I guess, food for thought for you to review with the new economic development manager.
One item we wanted to discuss just that very thing is how do we, as a committee, is any ideas on that end? And also, you know, if there is support behind that, if we want to really start capitalizing on that, and start promoting the city as a health and fitness city. And maybe put together some type of communication campaign around that very fact.
Perfect. And I guess, not to jump back for a moment, but when I think of, promoting this as a health and wellness destination, and then I also think about, Wildwood as a Route 66 destination, what can be done in terms of search engine optimization. So when somebody searches for Route 66, there's a good opportunity for Wildwood, Missouri to come up in some of the search results. Or if they search for health and wellness in Missouri or St. Louis County, something of that sort, what can we do to maximize search engine optimization?
You can pay Google directly. You can do, I mean, there's an easy way to do it.
Very easy way.
So, and the thing is too, the SEO, I mean, that it'd be more SEM on that part, but
Yeah.
if we just start, and we already have this, we have, the word Route 66 is plastered throughout the city's website currently, so that does help when you look at, and I'd have to actually do a dry run, but I'm assuming if you looked up Route 66, St. Louis, kind of, the City of Wildwood's website probably would pop up at least within the top 100. That being said, I'll look into that a little bit further because I know Route 66 is mentioned quite a bit on our website right now, but the SEM component and then actually boosting that through paid advertisement with Google, that I think that's a really good, that's a portion of the bigger marketing campaign that I think we're gonna wanna do here.
Okay, okay. And then, what else was I going to mention? I guess that's it for right now, from my standpoint. So do other members of the committee have, comments, input, and suggestions on the topic of, general discussion of economic development in Wildwood? Councilmember Dodwell, we can usually count on you for some excellent input.
How do we get more businesses in here in the daytime? That's always my subject. So that the retail establishments and the restaurants that we have here can continue to thrive when at least it sounds like a quarter to half of our population leave the city in order to do their business. How do we get them to, how do we open things that promote good business during the daytime? I've talked about before having more office workers here in town center so that the little restaurants that are around here can continue to be profitable during the day. But I don't have a magic pill on how to do that.
So enticing a prominent architect to relocate downtown, not to Clayton, but from downtown to Wellwood. So that brings with it
Yeah, something like that.
everybody that is associated with working for a prominent architect.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of things that are ancillary to any business, any service, professional business like that. Since we're not essentially catering to manufacturing, which is an instantaneous big pill of gratification, then it's professional class,
Mhm.
service class. Point taken. I had another thing that probably
This,
if I may. At the second last bullet on the second page of this. It's partnerships with West St. Louis County Chamber of Commerce, businesses of Wildwood and the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership. And not to try and sound like I'm loading up the new hire with insurmountable job description, but these three I've heard about since I was a kid. Don't know what they are so much, but know that they're prominent fixtures in our community. But having now having the human resources to participate, are things like this automatically being considered in the scope of work of a professional? Start.
Yes, the participation in chamber and those yes, that is part of it. And also I know our Chair Ottenberg here and other council members do also participate in the chamber luncheons, but it is something that when I was in this seat, there is a lot, there's an ability to actually engage with them a lot more often versus being in the city administrator spot. So now that we do have the human resources, we will be engaging with them, but also still checking in on that investment too, to make sure that have we actually been able to create a business or attract a business or two by having those meetings.
So, City Administrator Lee, so good point with the West Chamber. I know their next luncheon is coming up here at the Wildwood Hotel. I believe it's next week, if I'm not mistaken. I wonder if we can get our new economic development manager registered for that luncheon.
Certainly.
Oh, Councilmember McCutcheon, I believe you had your hand up earlier.
I did. I think we should have some kind of family-oriented businesses or destinations that parents can take their children to. I know like there's the museum, I think it's in Creve Coeur or Town and Country, where it's open all the time. The kids can go in and do activities. A library would be awesome. I think that would be usable. I know we have one down the street, but it's usually very crowded. But I think that would be something to draw families in to Town Center. And I think we need to have more friendly restaurants for Town Center. Something more kind of like middle of the road as far as menu costs go.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hopper has his hand raised.
Thank you, Ms. Lobeck. Councilmember Hopper.
Yeah, thank you. I'm purely going to chime in here and just echo what Councilmember McCutcheon was saying. I think when you look at the businesses around here, I mean, honestly, half of the data in here supports either high-end retail or family friendly, right? So if you look at, we've had restaurants that have struggled and we have restaurants that are successful. And I think we could probably say one of the busiest restaurants in town is El Maguey, and it's very family friendly. And parents want to take their kids and go to some place where they feel like they can take their kids to eat and not spend $300. Not saying that's definitely all the case, but or at least has food that they know they can take their kids to go eat, and it's not an affair. It's just like, hey, we're running out of baseball practice, so we're going to take the kids and run just to grab dinner real quick. And I like I said, I disagree 100% with Councilmember McCutcheon. I think we really lack a lot of that family friendly stuff for such a family heavy municipality. We don't really focus much on having any of those kind of businesses around.
Thank you for that. I think so. Yeah, El Maguey fits into that category. Probably Vallarta would fit into that category as well in terms of being family friendly, and so that's good input. Other input? Councilmember Dodwell.
I just have a question. Let me come back up here and find it. Sorry, guys. The wayfinding signage, we talked about that program over a year ago, and we had the signage sort of starting to get designed. Where are we at with that?
Well, not as far as long as I would hope, but I have a pretty good excuse. Melanie Ripito, our Assistant Director of the department, has been assigned that project. And fortunately, she's been kind of finalizing all of the information for the phase 2 of the internet project, which has become, as I'm sure you know, a much larger project than anyone anticipated just
Yeah.
because of some of the components with Spectrum.
That is correct.
But as soon as that phase 2 map is complete, which I believe is going to be
It's-
presented to Administration Public Works Committee here shortly, that's the next project. And
Okay.
I hope to have something for you this fall, at least start to chew on, so to speak.
I'll take some of the heat on that one because I have definitely taken a little bit of resource away from Joe's department over there to have her sure up that phase 2.
Yeah.
It's been a lot a lot of data.
Where it was at in the process.
So if I may, question, maybe this fits under general discussion of economic development in Wildwood, since the topic of signage was brought up at the last city council meeting, and I think this ties into a little bit to a discussion on signage. Mr. Brown talked about some aesthetic improvements on 109 in some digital street signage, if I'm not mistaken. So, is that what it is?
It's not a digital street. It's more like it's like an LED lit street signage. So it's not like, you're not thinking of like, I just didn't want to make sure to
Screen.
paint the picture of the screen being digitalized. It's more
Right.
so like a nice lit up LED traffic signal type
Okay.
look.
Perfect. And is that something that we are going to be moving to throughout the city eventually, or?
Well, I would say if there is gonna be a focus, it would be in the town center. The improvements that would be planned for that project specifically are focused on the 109 corridor, but the majority of that project was just replacing the guardrail that we currently have, since it's gonna be removed, putting back Corten steel guardrail that we currently have there versus putting in the galvanized. But there are 2 signal improvements that would occur there as well, and I would say that it's not a defined fact, but I think there is a goal to kind of beautify the town center area with that type of signage and also have that black coat finish on the guardrail to kind of give a more homey aesthetic feel, but it is aesthetic, at the end of the day. We could go, it's a lot cheaper to go back to just galvanized steel and a normal galvanized pole that would have the traditional standard signs on it. So that's something that as a city council could make decisions on. And we're plugged in with MoDOT too for their state routes and the county when they're doing these projects and resurfacing projects, and they're gonna be replacing signals. They know now to notify us, to let us know that, hey, we're going to be replacing this. Do you want, the higher quality material, or do you wanna just have us do our standard material?
Very good, thank you. All right, I think that concludes the discussion on economic development for tonight. So that brings us to not ready for action. Update to the economic development guide.
She's reading it. Thank you, Chair. Well, now that Jeannie is here, we're still in the training process, but that'll be something that she takes a look at, that we had the consultant develop back in 2016. And then make some tweaks here or there, with the committee's input to put together something that's a little bit more up to date and focused in on the feedback we received here tonight.
I would vote that we just throw the old one away and start new.
I will say there was like a portion of there.
You've got parts of the research you've done was much more in depth than the company that we paid to have do it.
We could at least keep the graphics. They didn't.
Okay, the graphics are kind of pretty, yeah.
That covers update to the economic development guide. So next would be miscellaneous. Are there any miscellaneous items to be discussed as part of this meeting? Okay.
You've got a hand up over here.
Oh, Director Boone, sorry.
I know I'm a guest here, but I've mentioned this on a couple of occasions. This fall, we'll start the process for the master plan update. It'll be the 10-year timeframe. And in the last update, we added an economic development element. So just kind of give you a forewarning, we'll be back at your doorstep asking for input on that particular element for the course of be at the end of 2024 and through 2025.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Mabry.
I could look this up, I'm sure, on the website. But for the master plan, I'd heard about the timing is right now for initiating that initiative. Is that a task force? Is that a subcommittee of a committee of the committees we have? Is that a special something that's elected by the mayor? How does the review and the execution of the revised master plan work?
It's always been administered at the start by a special group, advisory group, task force. And it's usually a group of residents from each of the wards. It's a representatives from commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission. And it's also council liaisons. And then the business community also has been invited in as well. So we did the 10-year update in 2016. I think the group was as large as about 24 or 25. And it covered every aspect of Wildwood. That'll be worked through our Planning and Parks Committee and ultimately, with your all's permission, now that we have the economic development element, probably through here as well in part.
Yeah, you kind of break
Director.
down different parts of it to different committees. He kind of, different parts of that overall document go to the different committees to be reviewed, and then it has to go back to council.
I was just gonna ask, is there a template? We've done this several times now. Is there something I can go and just read?
Yeah, actually, I can send it to all of you. I think at least the one in 2006 and the one in 2016. I think I have the memorandum still that kind of set out the parameters.
Please.
Thank you, everyone. Next meeting date is August 20th, 2024 at 6 p.m. With the indulgence of the committee, I would like to confer here with Councilmember Dodwell, who is vice chair of this committee, to see if you are going to be able to attend the meeting on that day, because I will be out of town and may not be able to dial in.
Hang on a second here. Date did you say?
August 20th.
August 20th, I'll be okay.
All right, thank you very much. That brings us up to adjournment. Before we adjourn, I just want to say once again how happy the committee is to have Gina on board as the Economic Development Manager. We're looking forward to working with you, and thank you so much for joining the team. Okay, that brings us up to a motion to adjourn. Would somebody like to make that motion?
Make the motion.
All right, Councilmember Preston, seconded by Councilmember Mabry. It is non-debatable. All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Rottenberg, did you get